In today's episode, I have the pleasure of chatting with Mike O'Dowd. He's a former Navy SEAL who spent 9.5 years in deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan, later becoming an instructor and earning his MBA. After leaving the teams, he faced a huge transition period, a lot of loneliness, loss of purpose, health struggles, failing marriage. And as a solo dad of two with shared custody, in the middle of COVID, he has what he calls his Cinderella moment, which we get into. Mike has built Defense Strategies Group based in LA to 80 or 90 people strong, most of them vets, spanning tactical training for civilians, high net worth security, a very complex thing, which I was really intrigued about, and a community gym for men. We get into what most people, men especially, misunderstand about toughness, mental toughness, and how that applies to business, what it was like launching a company with no safety net and what it took to keep that going, the hard balance of being a solo dad, missing moments, setting boundaries, staying present. This conversation was raw, it was vulnerable, and an absolute masterclass in what it takes to be resilient and tough when life doesn't give you a finish line. I hope you enjoy. Well, Mike, excited to have you on today, and yeah, really interested to dive into your story and what you have on the go. Would love to start with what you're building right now. And I know you've got a couple different businesses, and would love just to hear more about, yeah, what you're building and where you're at today with it.
Um, I have a company called Defense Strategies Group, and it's two companies, and we've since joint ventured with another entity. So technically, it's three businesses, but it's all in the same sphere. We provide security and training to everyday people for self-defense. So self-defense is everything from fighting, shooting, situational awareness, mindset training. And then the security guards, we provide arm protection, bodyguards, overseas travel to clients who need it. And then the third side of that is also this gym, so like a combative space, a gym where we do jujitsu, combatives, room clearing, everything you can think of from like an MMA type gym with the weapons training as well in it. And that's in Beverly Hills. And we're doing this all in Los Angeles. The office is in Beverly Hills. The goal was to hire as many vets as possible and give veterans a purpose outside of their military days, a purpose and actual like gainful employment, not just, Home Depot saying, hey, we have an initiative to hire a bunch of veterans. It's like, yeah, but you're hiring a bunch of veterans at like substandard wages. That doesn't matter. Like, it's nice. It really helps. But what veterans had in the military was deep, meaningful purpose. And when you leave that for a job that, let's just say, doesn't provide that same purpose, and the wage is, not something that's going to like make you happy or even allow you to have time outside of that to have your own purpose, it's a pretty shitty thing. So the moment I started the company, the goal was, I don't care if it costs me an arm and a leg, I'm going to pay guys the wage that they get. So I would pay higher wages to the guys. We're always on par with the market or slightly higher, because I would rather keep good people around me and keep a good community than to, profit off of people, nickel and dime them just to make that short-term gain.
Yeah, super cool. And yeah, very cool vision too. And I've, based on our initial conversation, like learning more about how that's actually unfolding. Can you share about like what the team actually looks like now? And I know operationally there's a lot of different pieces to it, but I think a lot of people could learn from, yeah, just like how you're figuring this out as it grows. So how many people do you have on staff, and what is it when you look at the more like security side of things? Like, how does that run? 'Cause I think service businesses could probably learn a lot from what you do.
Yeah, the service business, the security side, is pretty complicated. California mandates a lot of a lot of things that don't make sense, and they impose a lot of fees and taxes that don't make sense. So there was definitely a barrier to entering that security realm. But we have about 80 to 90 people on payroll at the moment, and I say at the moment because we recently had the fires, and the fires created a huge demand for short term security. So we brought on all kinds of people, and since some have gone away, um, but that was a massive gain. So 80 to 90 employees. We've got in the manager, call it the C suite, like the core group of management. We've got about 8 people in that core. Um, in the training company, it's really a company based on like 1099s. So there's 3 of us who are owners of the business, and then a couple other instructors, depending on what we're teaching and what the needs are for 1099. So that one's very small, but that business, it provides like a marketing outlet that the security necessarily, doesn't, because you can't really show what you're doing on security, and you can't show your clients, and you can't talk about who and what and where. But utilizing the training side, we can go heavy into the marketing. We can go heavy into the Instagram, the social media content, and we do play quite a big content game there. And we do that, and it becomes a feeder for the word of mouth and for growing that security side. And then people ask about the gym. The gym, it's like, why the gym? Well, gyms aren't necessarily like massive cash cows. They can be, depending, but this was never intended as it's a small space. It was never intended as this giant cash cow. It was really intended as a community space. So we have training. People come in and they work with us, and we've had the same clients for almost 5 years. But we don't have this space where they can come in. It's like, I'll see you next month. I'll see you in 2 months. And one of the biggest things men and women are as well, but men primarily are missing community. Like these motorcycle trips I go on, these the deployments I would go on, the one like missing component that I don't have in my life, or at least didn't when I transitioned, was these groups of guys like your brothers who you can talk about things, vent, show your vulnerabilities, whereas 90% of your time you don't get to do that. You just have to put on game face and work. So the gym became that. The gym was intended to like be this space where we could all meet. You don't even have to have a membership. You come in and grab coffee with us and hang out. And that's really what it's become. Like every day I go, every day that I go in, I get to see these guys come in and say, "What's up?" And then we can roll, we can fight, we can grab coffee, whatever. But it's helping to build that community even further.
What are you noticing as the impact for yourself, but also the people coming now that you have access and they have access to some of that?
Um, what I'm noticing is just my own happiness a little bit. My own happiness is growing. Like yesterday, I showed up. I was having one of the worst days in recent memory. Like at the moment that I showed up there, my dog ran away. My dog was gone for like 24 hours. She was gone, and I felt like my child was missing. I was completely stressed. That alone, I almost didn't go in. I'd looked at my trailer, my tire was flat, and I was like, well, that's awesome. And then prior to that, I had this like epic like family drama all in the same day. And I was like, this couldn't get any worse. I almost thought about calling in sick. I go into the gym. Zach and Angel, my two teammates, are there. And we're like, hey, let's roll, let's train. We're filming content for it, but like, let's fight. And so we put on the gloves and we started like training. And it's like, you see puppies going at it. They're not really biting. They're just kind of nipping and they're training. That's kind of what we were doing, was just getting after it. And at the end, I was so happy. I was smiling and I was just like, dude, this is what I need more of in my life. I need this daily. It's not just working out. I work out daily. That serves a bit of a purpose, but what really serves that purpose is having your friends around and having that community to support you when times are tough or you're having a bad day, for them to go, dang man, that sucks. I hear you. You know, they're not even changing anything, but I'm feeling heard. I'm feeling like they're supporting me. And I left there like with a big smile on my face. Simultaneously, like I left there and then I got a call that my dog was found. But it was like even before that, I was still happy. And I realized that that's all you need. You need that community around you. You need deep purpose and you need community. So having that gym has really been that. There's a whole bunch of other things it's brought, but that's the primary.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad your dog was found. That was like one of the first questions when you said that. I was like, did you find your dog?
Yeah, man. If that was the next door app, those like yeah, that Karen app that everyone's always whining on, found my dog, so I appreciate them.
Awesome. Awesome. Um, Something you said there kind of caught my attention. It's like working out is one part of this and helps you, but the rolling and being with the other guys is a different element. What would you share with somebody that's like, I'm good on my mental game, I'm working out a lot, I'm taking care of myself? What is it that you think that they might be missing that you're starting to see as this space grows and you're spending more time in it?
Yeah. You know, when I first started the company, I was working alone for the first like month or two. And I thought, I love shooting. I love fighting. I love training. All I want to do with my life is be on the shooting range and I'd be fine. Like if somebody paid me a bunch of money and I could just shoot all day, I'd be fine. And I did that for a few months and I'm sitting there and I'm hammering stakes into the dirt and setting up steel. And I'm looking around and I'm like, this blows. And I was like, what am I complaining about? I'm out in the sun. I'm not like wearing a suit at my desk. I'm not like sucking the corporate teat. Like I'm I'm free. And I was like, something is missing. And I couldn't figure it out because I would drive home and I'd be like, damn, that was by all standards a great day. But I'm like kind of depressed right now. And I realized it was I didn't have any friends and nobody wants to be alone. I didn't have any friends at work and I'm working all the time. I'm starting a business. Like entrepreneurs, you don't have time for friends and social life. Like you barely have enough time for your family. And then you're like, your friend calls you up on a Tuesday, like, hey, want to hang out? You're like, maybe in 3 months. I have a calendar opening in 3 months. You want to pencil that one in? So Angel, my teammate, he was interested in helping out, so I brought him out to one of the ranges as a safety trainer, and we had like the best time. And I was like, this is it, man. This is what's missing is teammates. You know, no matter what you do, whatever industry you're in, doing it alone kind of blows. You know, unless you're incredibly introverted and that's your thing. But like, I don't know, I'm not, and for me showing up, even if I make $0, and trust me, I've had many days where I make zero or negative money. But when you're there with your friends, it's like, who cares? It's not work. So that's something that this industry has, taught me over the last like 4 or 5 years was, you want to go fast, you go alone, but you want to go far, you go together. And I've gone far in the last 5 years because of the people who I've hired.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely noticing, like, I solo coach, I work with business owners, that social isolation and mental isolation is so hard. So I try and get out more. And I'm actually putting on like, get some business owners together tonight for a beer, just as a way for me to get out of the office. But yeah, I've been feeling that quite a bit over the last couple of years. Wanted to get into a bit of your background because we just jumped into like the business that you have now. Um, Take me back to your time in the military. What what made you? How did you get into that? Like, what was that path in? And was that always kind of part of your plan from your early days?
Yeah, I think you have a general outline of where you want to go in your life. And since I was 13, I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. I'd seen it on TV and I just was like, that's it. That's like where I need to be. It's elite, and I hate the word elite, but what I mean, I guess, by elite is it's it's a real test. And if you pass that test, it means something. It's not, oh, I got a computer certification online this week and it took me 3 hours to get it. That doesn't carry a lot of weight. To make it through a special forces selection, as from really any of those branches, it shows that you have the grit and determination to follow through with something. And when you're younger, you think that means you're badass. But what's badass is not the skill sets, because you can learn all those skill sets outside. I've plenty of clients with everyday jobs who, like, by all means should be like just like nerdy dudes who are lethal as hell, like savage shooting fighting skills. They could compete with anyone in the military. But really what those things test is it tests your mindset. It tests how gritty you are and how much like shit you can take. That's like the one differentiator. When I shake somebody's hand and he's like, I was a Green Beret, I was a Navy SEAL, I was an Army Ranger, I'm like, this guy can get through anything, right? He may not be the sharpest, he may not have the best skill, but he can learn it and he won't quit. And that's a rare skill. So since I was a kid, that's what I always wanted. Um, Also, I wanted to basically be Jason Bourne. I thought that was pretty cool too. Um,
So on that
so
note of the grit and resilience, is that something that came naturally to you before joining, or is that like a learned skill that you had to grow into?
I think it's a learned skill, but I think it's a learned skill from childhood. So I had um, divorced parents, and they fought all the time. Childhood upbringing, like, was, I'll say, like, I never needed anything physically. I was always able to get what I needed. My parents provided for me in a way where I could get the things that I needed. The emotional side, for whatever reason, made me into like a pretty hard dude, like a stubborn, hard, uh, kind of like a salty person. And so, yeah, I would say over my life, I became this gritty person who won't quit. So to go then into a program where it just constantly drives that home, I think it, refined it and made it more. But the people who go into the special forces programs, they're not soft dudes who then come out of it better. They're hard as nails, period. And then they train. Like, special forces, I believe, is a mindset. The special forces units don't, I should say special operations, because Green Berets will be like, stop talking about us. Special operations is a mindset. And the people are what makes special operations. I don't think special operations necessarily makes the people. They just train them in skills that make them better and more refined. But the program is the people first. And they select and they filter from this pool of like really high character top performers. And that, to me, I was like, that's what I want to be. So when I was a senior in high school, 9/11 kicked off. I wanted to do it then. I had, really liberal parents, and the military was not the way to go. So they talked me like, go to college. Everyone's saying, go to college, go to college. So I went to college, and the invasion happened, and I tried to drop out. I was a Division I rower at Boston University, and I was like, I want to be a SEAL. But then um, there was a Navy SEAL, like a high level Navy SEAL, who was at that rowing program, and he came and had a talk with me. And he basically did like one of those scared straight talks where he's like, what the hell are you going to bring to the SEALs that we don't already have? Like, you're not that strong. You're not that fast. You're not that good at anything. Quite frankly, you want to drop out of college, so you're not even going to have like a college degree. Like, why don't you just wait and become good and worthy and then bring something to the teams rather than like just get to say you're part of the teams? And I'm really glad he had that speech. It had this profound impact on me because that was the first time where I thought about what are the SEALs going to bring to me? And I thought about, oh shit, what am I going to bring to them? What am I going to bring to that community? And you find out very quickly you're not going to bring anything at first. At first, you're just a body. You're just like a meat missile. And I think taking the mindset of I need to bring something to the teams lasted on me where I always had to prove myself worthy of my teammates. And every time I went through a selection, every time I went through a test gate, I had that in the back of my mind. Like I have to prove myself worthy of being here. And that's a pretty selfless way of looking at things. And I hadn't really thought about really anything in my life in that way up until then.
I'm curious, like that obviously like drove you, and there was a lot of connection um, to being worthy, like putting yourself forward and contributing. I talk with a lot of entrepreneurs, and the notion of self worth can actually like hurt you in a way. Like you get dragged into like the business being part of who you are, and that can create like a roller coaster of um, like the business is struggling, so that means I'm struggling because it's all connected. I'm curious how you kind of maybe differentiate or see what you learned getting into the military and maybe like that self-worth connection in business now.
I 100% think that self worth is connected to what you do. And that's why I always had a problem when I first got out. I was working for like a real estate company, and I've worked all kinds of like odd jobs or employee W-2 jobs. And the problem I always had, it was like there's me and who I am and what I like to do. And then there's this thing that I have to spend 8 hours a day doing to get the money to then go do what I want to do. And they were completely different. Usually hated them. Even the jobs I liked, I was like, this isn't me. This isn't who I am. I would go home and say, okay, I'm a project manager or I'm the head of operations. But I felt like I wasn't authentic to myself. Doing what I'm doing now, doing what I did in the teams, like I was the teams, not like I was the teams. I am a SEAL. I was a SEAL. Like that's who I was. That's who I am. Right now, I teach shooting. I'm a security guy. Like whatever title you want to call that, I am that. I live that. I eat, sleep. I wake up with that. And anyone you ask knows that. I work more than most people I know, not because I'm a psychopath. Like I wouldn't do that if I was working at a Home Depot. I'm, I am, I'm so connected to what I do for a living, and that's not a bad thing. I think you should be. Because what's your purpose in life? Well, my purpose is I'm a protector. So I could be a guard, I could be a shooter, I could do all these things. I just happen to turn it into my business so that I can kind of control some of the levers. But that's who I am. I'm a protector. Um, Take away the SEAL title, that's still who I am. I'm a protector. Uh, I don't think you can find that deep purpose, that same deep purpose, if you don't connect the two, what you do for a living and who you are as a person.
Yeah. Um, this notion of the protector, I'm going to loop back to that in a little bit here. But I was curious to get a little bit more of, not like everything, but just a little bit more of a snapshot of how long you were in the military, what kind of roles you serve, because I'm sure that's contributed to the business that you have and like how you've actually been building it as well.
Um, I I was in the teams for 9.5 years. I went through a couple years of training, and then I was on a team where I deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. For those teams, I had a bunch of roles and specialties, and I would say my primary role, I was an intel guy. Intel means I would be talking with locals and getting information and finding out like who were the targets, who were the good guys, who were the bad guys. I was constantly like liaising with the local population to like, get information. And then I was also like when we were on scene, I was the guy questioning people and just really trying to get big picture, finding out like the who, what, where, so that we could go and find our targets and get our missions done. I was also a JTAC, so I would talk to the aircraft and coordinate, video cameras overhead, like watching the targets. I would coordinate airstrikes. I was a breacher, although I did that after my deployment, so I was more like a teaching breacher than a performing breacher. And I was a freaking good diver. When I was a new guy, they sent me to this like advanced dive school that nobody wanted to go to, and I went there, and so I was like a damn good diver. But of course, the wars were not in diving, so although I was primary diver, that meant absolutely nothing. Um, so really, like to summarize, I was like a intelligence kind of big picture operator. I wasn't um, I wasn't a sniper or medic or anything like that. So deployments to Iraq, deployments to Afghanistan, and then when I came home from that, I became an instructor, and I did instructing for 3 years at the basic schoolhouse, trying to get guys off the streets to then become SEALs. And I taught shooting, fighting, demolition, land navigation, primarily shooting though. So I was a shooting instructor and like helped start up like the combatives program for those students. I did that for 3 years. Loved that job. That was like some of the deepest purpose I ever had was really like being there at the schoolhouse. And then for family reasons, ended up getting out in 2017.
Okay. And within this, like a big part of what I interview about is like dad entrepreneurship. But within that time, like you became a dad, right?
Yeah, I became a father in 2011. I was leaving for Iraq, and we were talking about having kids, trying to have kids, and then I landed in Iraq. And my first call home, I called my ex-wife, and she was like, "We're pregnant." And I was like, whoa, like it had such a relief on me because I was terrified of getting killed, maimed, nuts blown off, whatever the heck you could think of, and not being able to have kids. And so when she said we were pregnant, I was like, boom, got into the battle space. I'm like, I don't care if I die, I've got kids coming. And it was a really, really cool feeling. And then I missed the pregnancy up till 8 months. So like pregnancy seemed easy, right? I would just get an email update like, "Hey, I had morning sickness today," and it was like the best you could have as a spouse to not have to deal with all that. I landed home in San Diego, and my wife at the time about ready to burst, and we had our daughter. Um, Fatherhood was pretty crazy coming home from a war zone because I definitely like looking back on it now, all of the symptoms of traumatic stress. And it's not like people think about traumatic stress as though like it's like scared, and there is that. For me, traumatic stress has always just been like hypervigilance and hyperaggression, overreacting to like some guy crossing the street and like looking at you wrong, and you want to like explode on them, or um waking up every night and clearing your house, 5 to 10 times a night because you're just constantly like vigilant and stressed out. That's what I was experiencing when I first came home. And I also had this baby. So it was really, really challenging for me. I didn't, I didn't enjoy being a father at all. Babies just kind of sit there. They don't do anything. They don't love you. They just want their mom. And I felt very alienated from that whole experience. It's all changed now, of course, but at the
Mm-hmm.
time, it was really, just it was just a stressor. It was just like one more anchor kind of holding me down from what I wanted to do, which was just go operate.
Hmm.
That was it. That was it.
Um, One thing you said really, I was just really curious about. You said you got, you had your deployment, you landed, and the first call was, "Hey, we're pregnant," and for you that was a relief. And I was really curious about that because I was thinking about, I was like, man, if I got there and then I heard that, I would almost feel more stressed because now I'm in this dangerous environment and I have a kid on the way. So I was just really curious that that was your response, and how curious about how becoming a dad, or knowing that you were going to become a dad, changed, if it did at all, how you operated on the ground when you were there for your deployment.
I think it's very important when you're overseas operating to become an animal, and you have to live like an animal. I rarely washed my clothing. I always wanted to stay like in the shit, in the suck. And I would eat with the locals whenever possible. I would, you know, like the most important thing you can do is become an animal. And part of becoming an animal is not worrying about the future, not thinking or worrying about death. It's just do your job and be an animal. And it's really hard to do that when you're thinking about back home. For me, my thought process was home is taken care of. I have an heir. We didn't know it was a boy or girl. We waited, but I have an heir on the way. So that my legacy is taken care of. My home is taken care of. My finances, everything is taken care of. All I have to do is just fight. And that's a freeing feeling. Once you can become that animal and you're not running on fear, you're not running on like, oh, what about this? What about that? Your mind's clear and you can just be that animal, and then you're untouchable. When you're not afraid of death, you're untouchable. Think about all the decisions you make in day-to-day life and how fear-based they are. Whether you're afraid or not, like it's fear-based decision making. And when you can just let go of all that and be like, cool, if I die, it's all taken care of. There's no fear, and then you can operate freely, and that's when you're best at fighting. Iraq, I was able to do that, and then Afghanistan, same thing. I prepped my mind for it before I went, and when I landed in Afghanistan, it was like, I'm already dead. Um, it just lets you be the person you need to be to fight. I don't necessarily know how healthy that is for everyday life, but I know for that time it was very freeing. So I got home from Iraq. Then after Afghanistan, I think my wife at the time was like, I don't want to be pregnant again while you're gone. That sucked. So we waited till I got home from Afghanistan. We had our second, our son, and big game change. I had come home from Afghanistan. My daughter didn't speak. She was, too young. And when I landed back home, I saw her for the first time, and she said my name, and she like talked. She's like, Dada. And I was like, oh my God. Now all of a sudden that changed. Then in my mind, I was battling with this. I need to be an animal. I need to fight, but also, dude, there's this person in my life who is counting on me and needs me. So that was different. It was no longer just this baby. Now it's this little person. That's when I think it became very difficult to think about, leaving, dying. I didn't deploy after that. After the two deployments, I came home, but um, I can imagine how much more challenging to continue deploying with kids that are growing.
Yeah. How has that mindset of being able to drop into this animal mode and not fearing death, how have you brought that into being an entrepreneur? Or is it different? Like, I'm curious about how you move into that, because it's high performance. Entrepreneurship is a high performance thing in a different way. I'm curious about how you maybe translated some of the mindset stuff that worked for you
Yeah.
into
I
that.
think when I first started working outside of the military, and I first and even at other companies, but then working for myself, I kept thinking like I almost had this entitlement of I'm a Navy SEAL, I've got a master's degree, I crush life. Why am I not more successful? And I just kept like this mindset of I've got all these skills. Why won't you pay me more? Why won't you hire me? And that there's this massive ego involved with that. Like why wouldn't you hire me? I'm the best. Like I'm a Navy SEAL and you're hiring this shitty security company. I have a master's degree and you want to go with it. And for the first, few months, it's like, why me? Why me? Very, very victim mentality. And then I'm like, wait a minute. There's no skill in the teams, in the military, or even any other career that you get that everyone else can't have. Everyone else can learn all the skills I have. Everyone else can sell themselves. Everyone else can shoot, fight, whatever. But the one skill I actually came away with is being able to eat large quantities of shit all day long, every day. And I can do that. I can beat all of my peers. You name them. I will outwork anyone in my mind and eat shit. And you tell me no. And you tell me I failed in this. And I can come back and come back and come back because you have to kill me to get me to quit. Same with my teammates. Like those guys, you have to kill them to get them to quit. Now imagine that. You're trying to beat somebody and they tell you like, if you don't kill me, I'm just going to keep coming and keep coming, get like zombie shit. That, how do you beat that person? You can't. And then that's when I realized I was like, that is my skill. What's your superhuman skill? Oh, I want to fly. I want to be invisible. No, I can just take shit all day. You could throw it at me all day. I'll just keep coming back. And that is, it's a blessing and a curse because then you work like 80 hours a week and you go, man, I'm really good at this, but this sucks.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe I don't want to work this much, but that is the superhuman skill that I've taken into entrepreneurship.
How would you train somebody to have more of that without maybe going to the extreme of joining the military? Like the average
Yeah.
entrepreneur that maybe doesn't have quite the same resilience. How do you actively train that or grow that?
We do these mental toughness workouts where we bring guys out to the beach and we put them in cold water. They're crawling in the sand. They're getting just like beat down. We're not yelling at them. We don't yell at them. That's like drill instructor bullshit. That actually doesn't even work. What works more is like psychopathic, just like being quiet and being nice to them and putting them through hardship. And that's what we do. And I was damn good at that as an instructor. And people will comment on social media. They're like, "Oh, these guys trying to be Navy SEALs. This is stupid." Blah blah blah. Like these guys aren't trying to be Navy SEALs. That's the military. These guys are trying to build grit. They're trying to have that ability to just endure shit over and over and over and over again. And that comes from putting yourself in the arena, putting yourself in these terrible, like uncomfortable situations. But it's not a one-time thing. Anyone can pass a day of SEAL training, special forces training. Anyone can pass that if you're reasonably fit. The real training is, can you wake up tomorrow and do it again? And wake up tomorrow and do it again and again and again? Because the answer for most people is no. Like, I don't know if you follow Jocko Willink. Most people do, it seems.
A little bit.
David Goggins, all these guys, and people talk so much shit on them, but it's not because they're so good at any one thing. Like when you see Jocko posting at 4 a.m., he's up, he's 4 a.m., he's up, people are like, oh, and there's so many memes about it and jokes. How many of you are waking up at 4 a.m. every day? Because the act of waking up at 4 a.m. doesn't 10x your business, The discipline required to wake up at 4 a.m. every day 10x's your business. That discipline to do it day in and day out over and over and over again, that is the magic. So many people, they just want the short and the fast. They go out and they max deadlift, and then tomorrow they don't work out, and the next day they don't work out because they're too sore. But to go to the gym every single day, get it in when you have 30 minutes here, 10 minutes there, whatever you have, that's the discipline.
Yeah. Um, really curious about the shift from leaving the military. You said you were doing an MBA. Can you share a little bit about that transition out and what that was like, and what you kind of how you decided to move into what you did?
Um, that was a really terrible time in my life. Like getting out of the military was rough. Everyone who gets out, they've got that purpose, they've got that community, and then in the same day they lose both. Your job doesn't fulfill that when you get out unless you've started something. And most guys don't start something because the only thing they ever wanted to be was what they did in the military. And now they get out. So that was me in a nutshell. I went to business school because I was missing those fundamental skills. I had an undergrad in international relations, had nothing to do with starting a business, no math, no like just like core business skills. So that's why I went. I spent a year while I was in the teams going to business school at UC San Diego. And then I got out and I got a job in Beverly Hills while I was still going to the school in San Diego on the weekends. So I would work like 40, 60-hour weeks. And then on the weekends, I would spend down at business school. So I was burning the candle at both ends. Um, it was awful. It was awful. And it really tested everything I had from grit, everything I had in resiliency. I had like a number of brain injuries that basically caused my brain to stop producing like this signal to tell my body to produce testosterone. And so there was this physical component where I was just degrading. My body was changing the chemistry of my body. I had single digit testosterone, like my facial structure, my muscle. It was like I was like dying in front of the mirror every day for like a year, and I didn't know what was going on. That was one. The company I was at was just the culture was just backstabbing, just terrible humans, all about money and greed and nothing. There were like good people there, but the majority of the company was just it was awful. Like this culture was so bad. Um, and then in that somewhere right in the middle of that time frame, like one of my really close friends in the military died in a skydiving accident, and my marriage was crumbling. And it was like, I'm super unhappy. I don't have my community. Literally, like all of my friends just kept on the military hamster wheel, going to deploy, going to do their things. And I'm out. I'm out. And all of those things, and I'm sure a lot more that I'm not mentioning, were just coming at once in the same year. And now I'm working, 60 hours a week, averaging. And then on the weekends, I don't have an outlet. I'm going to school and I have my kids. It just, holy shit. It was like the roughest, darkest time in my life. And I don't really know how I got through it. The resiliency was gone because everything going on with the testosterone. It was just a really, really dark period. Um, how I got through it, I'm not really sure. I think it just comes down to like how I get through everything is just like put your head down and take one step in front of the other, like compartmentalized days. But in those situations, I've always been emotionally strong, or sorry, like mentally strong. My emotional component was there. In this case, my emotions were a wreck. I had no mental capacity because my emotions were all over the place. I had a physical and emotional problem going on. So, to answer your question, that transition was just the biggest test in my life. It was like, why would I continue going on? Why would I continue like living this life when I don't even care if I'm alive? I'm just like I'm existing. Um so after going through all these different hurdles, COVID shutting down all the industries was actually like kind of a great thing for me because it forced me. I had no other choice but to start my own business. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have. It's such a risk to start your business, you know, financially. It's a massive risk.
Hmm.
And I had all kinds of responsibilities. I had, mortgages. I had all these things that I had to support. And, I would never have started a business. But in comes this blessing, which is this COVID. And it was like, hey, you don't have income. You don't have a company. What are you going to do? And it backs against the wall. People fight or they die, but you fight. So I started my business. I put up a post on Instagram. I was like, hey, I'm teaching a shooting class. Who wants in? I sold out. I did it again. I sold out. I did it again. I sold out. And I was like, oh, I think I have something here. And that was it. And then the momentum just continues and things in motion stay in motion and you just keep going. Yeah.
When we spoke before recording this, you called it the Cinderella Man moment, I think. And I just thought that was such a great analogy, and would love for you to share maybe a bit of the backstory of like what that's actually referring to and what that actually looked like for you.
Yeah. If you've seen the movie Cinderella Man, there's this scene where he's so broke and so poor, but he's got to feed his family. It's not about him anymore. So he goes into the social services during the Great Depression and he gets government money. He gets unemployment essentially. And then he goes and he fights and he wins a bunch of money. And the scene is he goes back to social services and he hands the money back, like he pays it back. And I always thought, I was like, wow, what a guy. Um, So there was this moment from April to like May, June timeframe in 2020 where I had nothing. I had no income and I had, all this stuff to support. I had mortgages and I was like, what do I do? So I took like a month or two. I can't remember exactly how much, but it was in this window of like two or three um uh checks from the government. And it felt like I've worked my whole life for this, so I don't look down on people who take unemployment. I personally just have this thing where I'm like, no, I'm too stubborn. I don't need that support. And I felt like a piece of shit. I was just like, this is the lowest point I could be. But it wasn't about me. It was about my kids. It was about like, I have to like give them a quality of life. So I took it. But then I started teaching these classes at the same time. I think that low point was my motivator. And I just remember getting that money back and I just stopped unemployment right there. I was like, done. That's it. Now, did I go back like Russell Crowe and pay it back? No. I thought, okay, well, I've been working my whole life and I pay into this. So like, I think that's the difference. Um, but I just felt like I got to cut this off. That was my moment. It felt good to have that discipline and say no, because I could have milked the system. And I don't judge people who do. For me personally, it felt like, no, man, you could do better than this.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the entry point to entrepreneurship. It wasn't necessarily like a plan. It was back against the wall. I need to do this. What were those first couple of years like? What were you doing, and how did you move through that?
The first couple of years was like, I can't remember if it was 2 exact years or almost 2 years, but basically 2 years without a day off. It's 2 years without a day off. Just Monday through Sunday, work every day, even if it's a little bit a day, work every single day. Um, it was show up to a training, somebody hands you X amount of dollars, and you take that X amount of dollars and you give it right back to the company and you don't take any money. It was like doing so many things that you don't get paid for. It was showing up to events just to meet somebody and say hi and let them know you have a business and not take money for it. It was like employee shows up to do work for you. The company doesn't make any money and you out of your own pocket pay that employee because you know if they don't come back because you didn't pay them, you won't be able to continue the business. It was it was like being in a ship that has just holes and people are just stabbing holes in it and you're just patching the holes and you're just driving around in this boat that's like sinking and all you're doing is just keeping it afloat at any cost. You're like using your own hands to plug up the ship at the expense of your own life, at your own happiness, at your own whatever. But that's what it takes, I think. Everything I read about entrepreneurs, I only have my own experience, but when I read about entrepreneurs, it's like, you know, they have their credit cards maxed out. They put mortgages out on like second mortgages on their homes and they're in the thick of it. I felt like I had a pretty an easier experience. I still worked hard as hell, but like there was no point where I was leveraged out of my mind and like almost under. I just like I think it was just more time. I sacrificed all my time, all my weekends. I missed my daughter had a soccer season and I missed every single game in her soccer season. You can't get that time back.
Well, I wanted to ask about that side of things because this is foot on the gas, survival mode, got to make the business work, working insane hours, and you've got young kids. How did you reconcile that and move through that? Like, if there's a guy listening who's in the trenches right now and has a family, what maybe would you share based on your experience that maybe you do differently or that helped you move through that?
Yeah. I think dads have a lot of weight on their shoulders and people don't acknowledge that enough. Like the weight of I need to be the breadwinner, but also be there for my kids. That's like just a massive weight. And I saw a quote the other day and it's been like kind of affecting me a lot lately. Like I think about this quite a bit. It was like basically don't wish for less responsibility, wish for broader shoulders. And said more eloquently, but that that's like super resonating with me lately. I don't want to have less on my plate. I just want to be able to carry more. Like I want my mind to be able to just handle it. Um, I think fathers, you know, they gotta sacrifice to survive. It's for their families to survive. You do this so that your kids will have a better life than you do. You do this so your spouse, your loved ones will have a better life. Um, and if you take on that responsibility, that in itself is a deep purpose, and it lets you go much further than if you're just doing it for yourself. It's very easy for a single guy to take risk. It's very easy for a single guy to skip a few paychecks or change jobs. Like you just have to worry about yourself. But when you have all these mouths to feed and these dependents, and that that's weight. Um, I think I strayed from like your original question, but I just know that the responsibility for fathers to like work their asses off, it doesn't get like the notoriety that it should.
What's the cost of that?
I think the cost of that is, for me, your kids thinking you're not there. Your kids maybe thinking, I don't know if their mind wanders to like, dad doesn't care, or dad doesn't love me, or whatever that is. But I felt that. I felt my kids asking me, am I going to be there? And then being upset when I couldn't be there. Having to tell my kids to change, I'm changing plans last minute. Having my ex wife watching the kids majority of the time when I have 50-50 custody and then getting blamed by my ex-wife that I'm not there, like I don't care. And that hurts. It hurts to hear that because you're like, dude, I'm working to make a better life. Like I pay for my kids to do all these things. Like my kids are in private school right now because I grind, not because I just want to like be gone all the time. And I think that's the cost. The cost is you can't be there. And so men are constantly juggling, and I shouldn't say men, it's people who are entrepreneurs and they have kids. You're juggling this balance of family, work life, and then your own self, like your sanity. And it's like, okay, I want to work out every single day, but also I need to be there for my kids. And then, oh, I got this machine and all these employees running, and you're constantly juggling the two. And if you can find that perfect balance, you're a AI bot, because nobody can actually find that perfect balance. And I think most men think they have to sacrifice one for the other, and I don't believe that. I think you need to find balance, because the happy wife, happy life. Like, if you think that sacrificing your personal life completely for your company or your family, you're not going to be happy. And if you're not happy and you're just like this like shell of a man and you're just weak and pathetic, your kids aren't going to respect you, your employees aren't going to respect you, and you're going to hate yourself. And if you're just working out 8 hours a day, the other two are going to collapse and you're going to be a terrible father. You can't do that. And I see so many of my friends and peers in this imbalance. And how do you balance it? Well, I don't know, but that's my goal. My goal is always to just balance it out. I have to be fit, but I'm fit for my kids. I'm fit to be an example for my kids. I have to grind hard so my employees see me working hard. If any of my employees outworks me, I've failed. So I don't let that happen. But then I have to be there for my kids all the time. So when a client calls on a Friday and they're like, hey, I need you to do this, I'm like, hey, I'm with my kids. Sorry, got to say no. And setting those boundaries for your life to have that balance, that's a challenge. That's a challenge, because it's very easy to say, oh, there's a work opportunity, I have to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's one of those things where the things that got you to the stage that you're at, the things that worked, you have to start to say no to. And you have to kind of transform the things that helped you be successful in the first place and adopt like a new way of operating the business and boundaries and what you do, which I think is like a weird learning transition point for a lot of, especially business owners.
Yeah. No,
Um,
you're right. You're right. It's a transition. I worked every day for 2 years, and then my family life was like, you're done doing that. That's not happening anymore, or your family's going to crumble,
yeah.
you know?
And I've had a lot of conversations about work-life balance and how do you do that? Like, how do you make sure the oxygen mask is on yourself so that you can fill up the cup of other people? And I was talking to a couple guys and they're like, balance just isn't possible. There's some people who are like, I need to find balance. And then there's other guys that say balance isn't possible. And for me, I've started to define it as balance often assumes equilibrium, like all things equal. And I don't think that's possible in the sense that everything is going to get kind of equal energy or focus. But balance is when you're spending your time in alignment with your expectations. So if you have expectations of how much time you can allot to the business or to your kids or to yourself, and you're accurately doing that for that season or that period of time, you have balance because it's kind of within your expectations. But when the expectations change and you're not spending your time in alignment with that, that's when I think you feel way more out of balance and there's way more like movement to burnout because it's not within your control or your influence quite the same way. But I don't know if it's
Yeah.
ever like all things equal. It's like it's always kind of moving, but are your expectations and your time you're spending like in like matching that? I don't
Yeah.
know
I,
about you.
I like, I like that. I like that. It's not a balance. It's prioritization of the three most important things of your life. And I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the downside is you're always going to be thinking something's neglected, because you have to put something on the first plate and then you look over and something is on the third plate. and you go,
Yeah.
crap, I haven't been there in a while.
Yeah.
It's like the mindset. Some people focus on their strengths, like the strengths finder. I've never been a fan of the strengths finder. I think the strengths finder is a way for like mediocre people just to continue like being mediocre at things and go, oh, but look, I'm really good at this. I've always been negative based and thinking, okay, we got to work on our weaknesses, work on our weaknesses. Well, the negative side of that is you're always thinking about what's weak. So everything is weak because once that gets strong, I look at the weakness and I look at the weakness and I look at the weakness. I think that's a way to constantly improve, but it's heavy to deal with. And I think the same thing with your priorities. If you're trying to balance that plate, you'll never have balance. So it's heavy because you're never there. You can never just say, "Yeah, I did it. Now I'm going to go retire."
Yeah. Well, I think that's like this really difficult trap because it's that constant, I'm never there. It's never in balance. The business could always be better. There's another milestone. Once I have X, then I can have space to do Y. Then I'll be happy.
Yeah,
And that treadmill is a really addicting and scary place, I think,
yeah,
because it
yeah,
just reinforces itself. Um, so I don't know. I'm fascinated by this stuff. I think it's super interesting. But I wanted to loop back to um, something that really I was curious about in that you are, you don't like using the term elite, but I would put you in that category of training people. You have to be really high performing when you're teaching, instructing, like the line of work that you're in, like high performance is critical. And being able to like keep yourself at that state and then at the same time switch and be in a different mode, like dad mode. Like how do you do that?
yeah. I think trying to balance. So we just talked about balancing the three important priorities. Well, with training, it's the same thing. I want to be the best shooter on the planet, but I can't sacrifice everything in my life to become that. So I probably won't become the best shooter on the planet, but I'm damn well going to try given the time that I have. I also want to be the best fighter on the planet, but I can't sacrifice everything in my life. I'm not in my 20s and I'm not getting paid for this. And it's not, I have kids. So I'm probably never going to become the best fighter on the planet, but I'm going to try while I'm training. That's every day for me. Every day for me is like, okay, well, today I'm teaching land nav. I'm going to be the best at land nav given the time that I have. And I'm always trying to be better, 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 better. I'm competitive with myself, but I give myself this, a little bit of leeway. My expectation is not that I'm going to be the best. It's that I'm just going to try to be. So I'm training constantly and I'm half of my day is training, but I'm also training to stay current. I'm training to stay relevant. Um, I have to be better than the people I'm teaching. So I'm constantly doing that self-improvement. There's a lot of people in my industry who used to be a SEAL, used to be a cop, used to be this, and now they're teaching, but they've got a gut out to here and they're like completely irrelevant. They're teaching stuff from 20 years ago. And it's like, okay, I respect it, but do you even respect yourself? Or are you just like living off of like legacy? And that's unacceptable to live off of what you were. To say that I was a SEAL, how long is that going to last? I was in the Vietnam War. You should listen to me talk about tactics. Are you going to listen to him? You're going to be like, dude, how long ago was that? I'm not going to listen to them. Somebody tells you that they did anything 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and they haven't done anything since. It's like, sorry to bother you, pal, but nobody cares. What are you doing today? What are you doing now? And so, yeah, I tell people what I did because I think it gives relevancy for my background and my mindset and my thought process, but it doesn't give relevance to what I'm doing at the moment. what am I doing at the moment? Well, I'm shooting thousands of rounds a week. That's why you learn to shoot for me, because I'm good at shooting. That's why you listen to me. Not because I was in the teams. That's just cool stories. Why do you hire my security company? Not because I was a SEAL. It's because every day I wake up and I constantly look at the bad in society and I think about how to stop it. And I'm intelligent and I constantly think about ways that I could capture bad guys and save people and protect people. That's why you would hire my company. And, I don't know if enough people think that way in terms of like, what am I still doing to be the best at what I'm doing? I think the successful people are. But I think there's a lot of people just getting by off of, just the status quo. And then, that's not okay to me. One of our slogans is refuse mediocrity. And that really is a mindset. Like I'm not okay with just being like good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with another coach on Friday, and he brought it up in that the difference between, or he was distinguishing the difference between being a teacher and modeling good student behavior. And I've definitely caught myself in some of the coaching, business coaching stuff, being a bit more of a teacher and noticing that, am I actually, if I was a really, really good student of what I was teaching, am I actually modeling that thing? And
Yeah.
I think that's really what you're hitting on. It's like, I can teach through legacy or the things I've done, but am I actually living it and breathing it and on the field of play right now, so that I can continue to teach even better because I'm just doing it and modeling it and
Yeah.
sharing those insights as I go through it. And I don't think I've been doing a great job of that over the last little bit. So it was a good like, oh yeah, like that's what it is. And I've noticed too that my energy's gone up because I'm more excited to learn and be a student and just share that versus like, I'm here to teach. It's like less
Yeah.
stale or something.
Yeah. I mean, think about it like this, like professors in colleges, they go on sabbaticals. And what do? They go learn more. Most teachers don't do that. They just teach and teach and teach. And maybe it's the same curriculum and they're just regurgitating at that point. But the best professors, they go on sabbatical. And you have to go on sabbatical. I had professors in, business school talking about entrepreneurship. And you come to find out they never freaking started a business. And you're like, get out of here. Like, what are you talking about? There has to be, anyone can teach anyone how to shoot a gun, but somebody who's seen combat can kind of talk to you about the ins and outs of why we do what we do and not just regurgitate this information. That's the difference between like combat training and just shooting a gun. And I think with starting a business, it's like, I'm going to take advice from somebody who like has never even done that. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think to be that teacher, you always have to take that time and keep going, keep getting the reps and stay current.
Yeah. One thing we didn't really touch on was the whole solo dad side of things. And I'd love to hear a bit of what that's like and what's been especially hard about it, or what you'd kind of share with other guys that are going through that.
I have my I have my kids 50% of the time, and it's a stable schedule. I know the days I have them. I know the days I don't. It's really challenging because the days I don't have them, I've just planned into my schedule like I can't work. If I have to pick them up from school on, I don't plan work after that. And there's rare exceptions where something is like very crucial and I have to get a sitter, um, but I have to juggle those balls. I have to keep my time with the kids sacred. And so I do my best not to chip away at those days. And similarly, if I have to take them from a different day, I can move work around, but I try not to chip away at my work. Having the 50-50 custody, it's nice because I feel like I've become a better dad because to balance those things, I have to work. but I also have to be with my kids. And that gives me a set schedule of, well, here's how I balance it. These are my days. And the days I have them, I'm able to focus entirely on them. And I really do feel like I became a better father once I had that division, as opposed to when we were together and I would just come home and be like, I got work to do. I got work to do. I think I saw my kids less, to be honest. I would physically see them, but I wasn't present. So working with kids, sometimes I bring my kids to the range. I've brought my kids to the meetings with with security clients, and it's so unprofessional from like a strict business standpoint. But then you realize like we're all human, and all business is like relationships and transactions. And so I'm like, well, if this person has a problem with my kids being there, they're probably assholes, and maybe I don't even want to do business with them. And you find out nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's like when we switched to working from home. Oh, everyone's in an uproar. Nobody cares. You just get done. You get your work done. Um, so I've been able to bring my kids and be more involved with them, even while working. So is it a challenge? Mainly just logistically. Do I have care for them? Who's going to pick them up from school? Those kind of things.
Yeah.
Um, it's not easy, but I think the most challenging part is just figuring out how am I like, what did I draw the line between work and family time? Because if I didn't, then it's a constant thought process. But once I draw the line, I say I will not work Wednesday afternoon or Thursday afternoon. Those are my days with the kids. Much easier. I have never regretted giving up work to spend time with my kids, but I've always regretted every single time where I sacrificed my kid time to work. Every time I'm like, oh, being such a piece of crap right now. And you get money, but like, you don't even care. You're unhappy.
Yeah. That lands for me. It's like, what are you going to regret more? Do the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We're knuckleheads. So we're like, no, I got to work.
Yeah. It's easy to justify it. I think a lot of just common wisdom is like, you have to work. Like, there's just so much ingrained social culture behind it that it's hard to deprogram some of that and do something different. And I think too that previous generations, there's some legacy from previous generations about how to work and what that looks like and what those boundaries are, and just the way families are set up now. Like, sole income of one provider isn't the norm anymore. Like, you need more than that. So just the way families are working and the state of everything is just very different than one generation, two generations
Yeah.
ago. Bit of a jump here, different kind of topic. What do you think men misunderstand about toughness?
From my experience, and I have a lot of experience in this is not me just like guessing. I can tell you from watching thousands of men suffer under my watch. Like, people think that toughness is something that we show. The guy with the cauliflower ear must be the good fighter. Not the case. The guy who is in cold water and he's like yelling like, yeah, that's tough. That's not tough. That's movies to show people toughness. Toughness is in this head of yours, and it's not something we see. We would watch students come and go, quit, not quit, and everyone would ask like, can you tell who's going to make it? And the answer is absolutely not. Never. The big guy would quit. The little tiny like scrawny dude would make it. And you're like, that doesn't make any sense. There's no logic behind it because we don't know what's going on between the years. Like, toughness is being able to show up day in and day out and just do it. The big bodybuilders, is it hard to lift a bunch of weight? It's hard, but it's not mentally hard. It's not mentally hard. Is it hard to run a marathon? It's harder mentally, but it's still not the hardest. What's the hardest mentally is to say, go run until I tell you to stop. When do you think you would quit? When do you think you would quit if I told you just run till you stop? Because if I said go run a marathon and you're fit, you would run 26 miles. But if I said just run, you think you'd make it 26 miles? Most people wouldn't, even if capable. Everything between their ears, and I'm not saying you, I just mean in general, everything in between your ears would start fear-based, like telling yourself this negative thoughts, like, I can't do this. This is hard. I'm thirsty. I'm tired. And then you would quit. And that was the secret sauce in training at Buds was we wouldn't say go run 5 miles. We would say just run. We did this officer selection and we had these guys show up from different colleges for a summer, like 2-week boot camp. We beat the shit out of these guys. And it wasn't even like Buds. It was just it was so intense. The curriculum like was just ad hoc. Like we messed these guys up so badly. We would just, here's a heavy ruck at night, get on the beach and run. And we would have an instructor take off running at like a very, very fast pace, like completely unbearable pace. But in their heads, that pace made them think they have to keep that standard. So then after like a quarter mile of running with 45 pounds on their back, they would realize they can't keep that pace. But mentally, it would tell them, I'm not good enough. And then they would slow down and then they'd start quitting. And what we ended up making them do was run like 12 or 15 miles on the soft sand. But we never told them there was a standard and we never told them there was a pace and we never told them you'll fail. We made them think they would. We made them think this was the standard and the pace, and we never told them the distance. That messes with somebody badly. That's mental toughness. Mental toughness is not knowing when it's going to end,
Hmm.
not knowing how far you're going to go, how deep you're going to go. That's scary. And you just had that's entrepreneurship. You don't know if you're going to make it. You don't know how far you're going to go, how long you're going to last. You just have to trust yourself and have confidence in yourself. Because if I told you, hey, just hold on for a year and I'll give you $1,000,000, done, easy.
Yeah.
Hey, I need you to work 80 hours a week for the next year, done, easy. But what if I told you, I need you to work as hard as you can for an undetermined amount of time and maybe you'll succeed? So now I'm out of here.
Yeah, there's so much to that uncertainty component. Like not knowing when or how, like, yeah, having you describe that and picturing myself like having to run and the question mark of like how far, how fast, like that would mess with me. And I think that's
It'll mess with everyone.
yeah.
I'm sitting here talking like I wouldn't be. It would mess with me. It messes with everyone, and you
Yeah.
have to dig deep in that stuff. That's what I love so much about what we were doing and what we're currently doing now with people is we're teaching people to dig deeper and have more confidence in how far and how hard they can go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been super cool. I appreciate you spending the time with me. And I just had a couple last questions for you. One of which is, where is the business going? Like, what are you excited for as you look forward over the next couple of years, and what you're trying to build? What does that look like?
You know, my goals for the security company are just we've been getting new clients every so often and it's just growing and I'm looking at revenue, but revenue is an important metric from a business standpoint, but my personal standpoint, my success is measured by payroll. How many people are we bringing on? Because my goal was to hire veterans. And every time I look at the roster and we're getting more veterans, more veterans, more veterans, I'm like, that's it. That was it. That was what I intended to do. And that's what I'm proud of. I'm proud that I make enough money to like feed people and feed my family, but I'm so proud that they can feed their families because that was the hardest thing for me was like that uncertainty of like, what will I do? And then for the training company, we've gone from teaching 10 people a class to now we're putting out content where we're teaching 500,000 views, 1,000,000 views. And most of those are hater bots and people who who say stupid things, or some percentage. But there's so much scale to that, and how many we're shifting culture around warrior mindset and protector mindset. And that's my goal. I don't care if people own guns, don't own guns, none of that. I care if people start to change to become warriors. Men want to become protectors, women want to be able to defend themselves, and we're doing it. We're part of that puzzle. We're part of shifting that mindset. Um, and I love being able to watch like how far we've come. It's hard to measure it, but when I look back and I see where I started, hammering stakes in the dirt for 2 years and not making any money, to now, it's like very, very proud of that.
Congrats. It's cool to hear that bit of the journey, and I'm excited to keep following. My
Thank you,
final
man.
my final question is, what's something that you need to remind yourself of? So let's say you're listening to this 6 months from now, a year from now. What's the piece of wisdom or advice that you would need to hear or remind yourself of?
Um, you're never there. You're never there because when you're there, you let your foot off the gas. When you're there, you become complacent. When you're there, you stop progressing and you stop challenging yourself. But you're never there. And if you keep that mindset, that is how you keep growing. The black belts in jujitsu that I've for 20 years now on and off been practicing and trying to get this elusive black belt. One day an instructor told me if I kept practicing every day for 12 years, I'd have my black belt. That was 20 years ago. I may never get this black belt, but the point is I've seen so many of my friends get black belts. And I've realized over time that the black belt means nothing about how good you are. It means how much work you've put in. It symbolizes how much dedication you've given to something. And I hope to get one. But once I'm there, that doesn't mean anything because I'm still going to get beat by people. It just means that I've like dedicated my time and to my craft. And it's even more important. It's like you're basically getting another white belt. It's like, okay, here's your new belt. Now that's more responsibility. So I take that into my business life. I take it into my family life. You're never there.
Yeah. Awesome. Where can people check you out if they're curious about what you're up to and what you're building?
Yeah, our website, defensestrategies.us, or for security, defense strategies group .us. And also on Instagram, defense strategies group. We take everyone. People are always like, oh, well, I'm just a newbie. That is our market. We train police, we train military, but our core demographic is people who don't know anything about this and they want to defend themselves and their families.
Super cool. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. This has been great. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.